This is Deborah Atkinson, and you're listening to Flipping 50, where I address your top questions and things you struggle with most so you can have more energy and less decision fatigue about what to eat, how to move, and you can change your thoughts to Flip 50 with the life and the energy you love in this second half. Cottage cheese, Dimples, whatever you call it, no one wants to see it. Does cellulite reduction solutions actually work? Do they have to hurt? Are results temporary or permanent? That is what I am unpacking in this episode. And, there's probably no time of year when cellulite isn't a concern for most women, but especially in those northern climates where we're really starting to think about shorts, sleeveless weather. We're thinking about wearing a little bit less clothing, showing a little bit more skin. It gets harder and harder to hide under blazers and long sleeve shirts. And yet when you don't have the freedom to wear what you want to wear to be cool, comfortable, anywhere you want because you're self-conscious, that's really, I think, no way to live. So let's talk a little bit about, number one, I don't want to get started here without prefacing it this way. And I also want to give a shout out to fitness professional and probably a name you recognize, Chalene Johnson. Now, Chalene is, as far as I know, not 50. Yeah, she's not one of us yet. But she probably is within the next 5 to 10 years going to hit it. However, she really talks it bluntly, plays it like it is. And she has done a podcast that you may also be interested in listening to. And I will link to that. I will also link to an episode that I did back in 2016, sharing a 4-step cellulite solution program that was based on some recent, at the time, research. Since then, there's more. I'm going to deep dive into that just a little bit later. There's new research on a cellulite reduction program. It's 5 steps. And I'm currently putting final touches on a brand new program to target cellulite. I'll share more and a specific invite to be a part of the beta group for 50% off. In fact, just a little bit later in this podcast. So stay tuned till the end and I'll share a little bit more about those details. But in this episode, I do want to tackle the real scoop on cellulite reduction. And we have to start with what it is, beyond the dimples and cottage cheese, and what causes it. But even before that, into the mindset that I am not suggesting that you should try to eradicate it, or even that you can. We'll get specific on what is possible during the episode. But it's also a matter of embracing all of our imperfections. And it's more about, what are you doing? Are you within reason doing everything you can for a good and healthy lifestyle? And there's several things here. So eating well, eating healthfully, exercising well and healthfully, getting the lifestyle habits in order like sleep, stress reduction, all of those things are applicable. However, that is a little broad where I come from. We no longer know, really without a doubt, any one of us what is healthy, because it is not what we learned about the food groups in 4-4-3-2-1 in 2nd and 5th grade. It is not about the exercise that we learned when we were in our 20s and our 30s and we committed to that hour of power of cardio and trying to do back-to-back cardio to get in even better shape, right? Which totally backfires, but it sometimes takes decades, and maybe now it's catching up with you. We have to define or redefine appropriately what is healthy eating for you right now, the moment that you're in. whether that's perimenopause, menopause, or your postmenopause, it is not the same thing that you probably thought or learned decades ago about healthy. So let's first make sure that we throw that out there, and that I am not just throwing out some arbitrary eat healthier, exercise better, or healthier, because you first have to define what that is before you can do it. And I would say that a large percentage of the women in the Flipping 50 tribe who first come and get started in a program find that's one of the benefits of being in our community, because there's got to be some unlearning, not defaulting to those old habits of more is better, more. We'll burn that fat off, burn more calories than you take in. That old science doesn't work, and yet it is, and I know it is for you, easy to default to that because it's intuitive, it's logical, and yet sometimes you've got to throw those things out, and that's where we're at. So let's take a good look at what is cellulite. So it's really a skin problem, but there are multi-factors, and we're going to dive into several of them and what causes it. So number one, let's talk about age, because we are, those of us who are here in perimenopause, menopause, or beyond, most likely in our 40s, although there can be an earlier onset by surgery or nature of perimenopause. Most of us are probably in our late 40s, mid to late 40s, and or 50s, 60s, or beyond. But cellulite can happen at any age. Teenagers have cellulite. Genetics are clearly at play, because you can be fit, you can be fat, you can be skinny, you can be deconditioned. There is no discrimination necessarily. That says a lot about DNA. Now, we can also look at different ethnicities. So whether you are Black or Asian or Spanish or you're Caucasian, anyone can have cellulite. It's true. So your DNA, what you got from mom and dad, and particularly if you look at the females in your family, because females more than males, I'll talk about that as well, will have more issues with cellulite. And if your mom, your sisters, your grandmother, your aunts, if they've got cellulite, you may have a stronger tendency to it, but you have a stronger genetic tendency. And we know, just like anything else, whether we're talking about disease prevention, your athleticism, you can change the expression of certain genes by what you do. That is what's called epigenetics. Combining the environment that you create, the habits that you do, can have a big impact on your outcome. Sure, you're stuck with certain genetics, but those genes and traits don't all have to express themselves, and or certain genes you want to express can easier with the right habits. So really important that you don't back yourself into a corner thinking it's just it. That's just your genetics. It's just a part of it. It's not your fault, because it may not be your fault, but it is within your power to change it. And you've got to start thinking that in order to actually have it matter. So age isn't really completely to blame. However, it will come into play later because of these following things. Muscle. We lose muscle or begin losing it about age 30. We peak at age 25, so nobody knows exactly where for sure we start losing it. But if we're not doing the right things to maintain it, the right things being the right kind of exercise, we're the right kind, strength training, interval training, and not too much long, slow endurance activity, and the right dose of it. So doing interval training for long extended periods of time every single day or many days a week also is potentially going to push you over the edge. That's not ideal. But then You've got to look at strength training. Are you doing the right kind? Are you just doing it? So you've got to come into play and do the right kinds of things to maintain that lean muscle mass. And here's the good news, because I can't go back and make you 30 again and get you started, but if you're 50, you're 60, you're 70, and you haven't been strength training, it's never too late to start. And yes, you can gain some of that lean muscle back. You hear me talk a lot about fast twitch muscle fiber. We lose that twice as fast as slow. Strength training, we call it anaerobic training, is one of the best ways to get it back. And the other one is doing quick, fast, short agility moves. Now, it might be that you're doing that because you're also doing interval training of some type. But moving quickly, picking your feet up, getting them to move is super important for maintaining that fast twitch fiber. So making sure you're holding on to muscle, because if you're not holding on to your muscle, what are you doing? You're losing it, and then by default, you're increasing your fat. So fat comes into play if you are carrying more fat than is healthy for you. Say your BMI is 30 or over, or your percent body fat is over 29 or 30 for a female, then that's not healthy in terms of disease risk, or specifically heart disease risk. And you're more likely also to have more cellulite when you do have more fat. So if you, if you weigh the same as you did 30 years ago, and you have not been lifting weights or exercising adequately or consistently, you've likely lost some of that lean muscle you had. And if you're the same weight, that means by default, you've increased your percent body fat. And so my guess would be that you're not wearing the same size of jeans that you used to wear, or if you are, they don't feel the same. They're binding and cutting in certain places where they never did before because things are shifted around. And that is a sign that you've potentially lost muscle tissue, you've increased your body fat, and you may have other indicators. You may be listening and you're not the same weight, and clearly you haven't been exercising, and you likely have enjoyed socializing or your wine and those things that actually put on more significant weight than would be good. Most likely it's an increased percent body fat. So right now, I'm going to take a brief infomercial and tell you this. Go test your body fat. You're not looking for BMI, body mass index. That's your height, your weight ratio. You can figure that out with math. What I need you to do is go get tested. If you don't have a bathroom scale that measures your weight and your body fat, then go to any gym, any personal trainer, any rec center. They will be able to do it for you. One of my favorite tools to use is called InBody. You're fully dressed. You just have to take off your socks and your shoes. You stand on it, hold on to the handles. It's done in 5 seconds. It will tell you your total body fat, the percent of fat in your body. And it will also, very interestingly, tell you your right compared to your left arm, your right leg compared to your left leg, how much visceral or belly fat, deep belly fat, which is a greater risk for disease, you carry. And that snapshot can really be helpful. You need to know. So the American Heart Association is infamous for saying know your numbers, but this is one that you need to know. Blood pressure, cholesterol, yes, those are important. Your, inflammatory markers, but this number you need to know. So if you're judging your fitness level by your weight or your health by your weight, you're completely backwards. We need to know your body fat. That is a better indicator. So go and do that right now. Figure out what your muscle is, what your fat is. And as you start changing for exercise or eating better, you want to see that lean muscle never go down, excuse me. In fact, increase if you can stand it, and therefore your fat will decrease. And hopefully you are increasing lean muscle, you're decreasing your percent body fat, and helping it from both sides improve your percent body fat. Okay, so let's look at fat, and it does show up more. What we're looking at when we talk cellulite is we see it directly under the skin, right? Those dimples or that cottage cheese or the orange peel effect. it's directly under the skin, and that's why we can see it. We call that sub, meaning under, cutaneous standing for skin. So subcutaneous fat is directly under the skin. We also have fat internally within our organs. Some of that we need for cushioning those organs when we do high impact exercise or just life. And some of that fat we carry as visceral fat woven in our midsection. And there's too much of it. That's not a good thing. But that's not what we see when we see cellulite. So if you carry more overall fat, by percentage, you're simply going to have also more subcutaneous fat. And that's both the pinch and inch, behind your arm or at your belly. And it is potentially also where you see cellulite. So if you can pinch an inch or more at your thighs, good chance that you can see cellulite more in your thighs as well. But let's go on. So it's about age somewhat. Any age can have cellulite. You will have more show the older you get, partially because we've lost muscle and been losing it for potentially 2 or 3 decades. Therefore, we have more fat. But the next thing up is about skin. Cellulite really is largely, but not only, a skin issue. So it's a multifactorial problem. So we've really got to address all of them. But when we're talking about skin, we produce less collagen, which is what helps our skin be tighter and firmer and have better resolution than it does if we begin to lose collagen production as we age. So that is one of the issues. We've just got thinner skin. It's weaker. It's another part of the reasons we see more wrinkles, more crow's feet. And yes, it's because we've been smiling and crying and frowning more, longer, for years and decades, but we're also now having a thinner skin than we ever used to because of a decrease in the collagen production. So there are certain things you can do, of course, to help bump your collagen production. We'll talk a little bit about those. But that weakening of the skin also causes a connection. So if you'll imagine, it's kind of like building a bridge or building a road, and your top layer is the top of your skin, and then there are connective tissue, connective strings that run up and down between your fascia and your muscle, and those connections are weakened and pulled more because the skin is kind of like bumpy, and it's giving and going whenever it's pulled because you don't have that collagen and it's not as strong. And that's why you tend to see more dimples, because it's like little potholes in the road along the way because your foundation is not quite as strong as it used to be. So skin is potentially a big part of the issue. And hand in hand with that is the fascia and what happens. So if you'll imagine your anatomy, all of your muscles, right? So just think back to the anatomical figure of, the legs out, arms spread out wide. And we see all the muscles. Over the top of all of that muscle is what's a hairnet-like structure called fascia. And when you're foam rolling, for instance, or you're having somebody give you a massage, say you get on the table, somebody's giving you a massage, and then you get up and you suddenly just feel lighter, you move better. That connective tissue was broken up. And, there are a couple of different schools of thought about the patterns of female versus male fascia. And what tends to happen for women is it's not as strong, it's not as woven as tightly, but yet we can get it all bound up and it gets stuck. So when you get off the table, you feel like that's been broken up and some of that connective tissue, it's been stuck in places and it's been broken up. It's like breaking up scar tissue. Now you can move a little bit more freely, but the difference between men and women is that ours is kind of just much looser and basically weaker. And so as we age, that kind of gets amplified. And for men, it's more like a basket weave or a plaid, and that structure then is tighter, and they tend not to have that fat come through and peek through the same way that we do. So if men tend to have more feminine components to their skin, it has a lot to do with their hormones. So if they tend to have more estrogen, that also lends itself to man boobs, and not to be condescending, but literally someone who has man boobs also may have a tendency to have a little bit more cellulite than most men would. However, so we know that you and I age. Estrogen is not the only thing contributing, although it is hormonal, right, that it's estrogen. As we know, our estrogen levels drop in perimenopause, menopause, and beyond. If you are highly stressed, remember you're estrogen dominant, you have more estrogen relative to progesterone, you could see more cellulite. So think about the things that cause you stress. If you're drinking way too much coffee, you're staying up way too late, getting up way too early, you're just subjecting yourself to a lot of stressors. And I know we all have them and we can't always control them, but you can control some, probably more than we're willing to each of us recognize and or take responsibility for. And you can definitely work on your coping skills related to how you handle stress. And some of that is just dialing up the joy side of that factor. So it's the equal and opposite. You're laughing, you're getting a belly laugh, even if you're calling up your significant other, your best friend, and laughing about how everybody else in the world is crazy except for us. Thank goodness. So the problem doesn't go away, but you feel like you can handle it better, knowing you're not alone in the world, you had a good laugh. And that can all help reduce your cortisol. That's an important part of cellulite as well. We can't ignore that. And, I've been for years saying that we grow up, we have the sex talk with our parents, right? But we rarely, any of us, had the stress talk. Like, these things are going to come up in your life. Here's some ways, positive ways you can handle them, and here's ways you may tend to want to handle them that are negative. Don't do this, like don't smoke, don't drink, don't, and we didn't have that. So now it's the time for, you're hearing it potentially first from me. Let me be the first to do this for you. You've got to deal with those things, because stress is something you cannot ignore, because it comes into play in a lot of different places in regarding the health and the energy and vitality you want. One of the obstacles is stress, and you're potentially ignoring what you can do about it. So skin, again, back to a big one. We're aging, our skin gets older, less resilient because of the collagen. We'll talk more about what to do with that. And then there's sleep. Doesn't this one always come up? Sleep is also of utmost importance because it's a part of the big package. And if we go back to muscle, from hearing me, especially if you've been in a Flipping 50 program, that you've got to sleep in order to have the right hormones come out to play and work for your benefit if you're exercising specifically. So you've got to have growth hormone, testosterone, and cortisol, all very much heavily influenced by the best sleep that you get. Then you got the best muscle benefits, right? So it's also a factor in fat by default. Cortisol, number one, and if you're losing muscle, you don't have the right hormones there, you're increasing your fat. And also skin. We know that skin, as well as your brain and so many parts of your body, rejuvenate overnight. I don't know if this has ever happened to you, but thankfully it still happens to me. My skin heals fairly quickly. So I right now am experiencing that double whammy I don't recall signing up for, of, more wrinkles around my mouth and my eyes. But I'm also still breaking out occasionally. I can have this week where I'm like, oh, whew, thank goodness that's over. I'm through that. And then the next week, no, I'm not through with that. I'll have pimples or zits worse than when I was a teenager because I didn't actually have problems as a teenager. Now I'm wishing, why couldn't I have just had a problem when everybody else did? Although I look around and my girlfriends who are going through perimenopause and menopause experience the same kind of thing. It's just random. It's nothing that you expect. But repairs, often happen overnight. Like I can, look better and have healing occur, from the time I go to bed to the time I wake up the next morning if I've gotten a great night's sleep. Well, whether you have a blemish or not, that's happening. So lots of positive things happen overnight. So don't short sheet yourself, literally, pun intended. Sleep is really important for maintaining your muscle, optimizing your percent body fat, and for repairing your skin and rejuvenating it. So sleep can do a lot to turn back the clock. And what works? Let's talk about that. So we've hit on age, on muscle and fat, on skin, and on sleep. And, I will just randomly mention that I'm not going to go deeply into this, but environmental toxin exposure is also a big play. So look around, your house, your environment, where you work. What are you exposed to? Because it does matter. What you breathe in, what you put on, what you ingest matters. And all of that will come into play as well. Toxins in your body come out somehow. Cellulite Reduction solutions. Are you ready? Number one, we're almost going backwards here. So sleep enough. Sleep enough for you really is the message, because I don't know what that is for you, but I know for me, it's probably closer to 8.5 or 9 hours than I'd like to admit. I wish I could be a more efficient sleeper, but it's not going to happen. And when I get too little sleep, I can be great. I can operate and move on adrenaline for 3 or 4 days. But I'll tell you what, about the time I get cocky about, wow, I handled that so great, I will have a day when I feel like I was hit by a truck. And get just, I'm in a fog and, can't really get going. I have the desire to do, everything I wanted to do, but I don't have the real mojo to do it. So know what your sleep is. You'll feel rested when you wake up if you're getting it. So pay attention to that. Eat for fat reduction and for skin rejuvenation. So learn what those are. There are some foods that actually help rejuvenate your skin. And obviously, or maybe not, they're rich in antioxidants. And that's important. So you want to make sure you're making every bite count. Get the most vitamins and minerals, the antioxidants in those foods that you're consuming. Choose foods that help you stay hydrated. So yeah, drinking enough water should be an obvious one, and I haven't actually included that in my list, and I will. But also foods that are more watery or full of water in nature, by like cucumbers and celery and fruits. Like if you compare an apple, say, to a banana, an apple carries more water. But all of those higher in liquid and water, if you will, foods are excellent for your skin. And then look at what's the antioxidant content of them. So get those healthy greens, but get deeply colored vegetables every other way that you can. That helps every possible part of your body, but can also help rejuvenate your skin and reduce fat. So when I say reduce fat, eat for it, that doesn't necessarily mean cut out fat. You need healthy fat, you need omega-3s, and that certainly can help your skin and improve it. And then we're talking exercise. So I've got several components of exercise. It's complicated. It's not just exercise because that's going to help you. There's some very specific things, and that's where back in 2016, it was a 4-step program. Taking things you already do, but sequencing in the right order matters. Now it's a 5-step program, and we're really tweaking behind the scenes at Flipping 50, not just those 5 things, but the intensity of those things and where it needs to be. Now, nothing needs to hurt. So don't stop listening thinking, oh, that's not for me. It must be really, really hard. Because I am all anti, the fascia blaster, thinking you've got to, drill deep into your skin and do deep tissue massage and it's got to hurt to break that stuff up. That's not going to be anything that you or I are going to repeat on a regular basis. We're not going to go back for abuse. So it's got to be at least tolerable and something that gets you results, but that you're willing to repeat and stay consistent doing so you can get results and keep them. So let's say this is not a quick fix. It's not I'm going to do a 4-week or 8 or a 12-week program. I'm going to lose the cellulite and then I'm going to stop doing that. This is one of those things like somebody posted the other day on their timeline. If you ever, go and get your nails done or your eyelashes done, be sure that you have a lot of money in the bank account so that you can continue, because they will suck you in and you will never want to go back, right? So you have to keep doing it. Well, this is a lifestyle change. So if you are going to reduce the appearance of cellulite, you're going to have to somewhat keep up the maintenance. That's always been true of weight loss, and it couldn't be more true now. But the good news is these 5 steps are steps you should be doing anyway, and it's just putting them in the right sequence with the right intensity, and there's a little bit of manipulation of a time constraint. So it doesn't have to be super long, but because we're putting a lot of things in order, you have to have a little longer period of time to address them. So number 1, we're going to lift weights. So we're back to muscle, right? And we're also back to fats, lifting weights to fatigue. I'm a fan of heavier strength training because of the bump in metabolism, the bump in bone density, and you get it done, right? If you're lifting heavy, you can't do very many and it's over pretty quickly. You can get a really great workout in 10 minutes. You can get a phenomenal workout in 20 minutes. And if you're lifting heavy enough, that's really enough. You don't need to put time in. It's not about how long should I be strength training. I get that question a lot. That's not even a relevant question. And I'm not hopefully offending anybody who's got that question, but I want to point out that's not the question you should be asking. You should be asking, what makes it quality? What do I need to do in order to get a quality workout in? What does that consist of? How long might it take? Those are good questions. So lift weights, reach fatigue, using heavy weights if you can, meaning you're fatiguing at 10 or fewer repetitions, or you're using a little power, a little speed on the lift, still controlling it on the way down. All things that will help. Cardio intervals. Remember that very recently, that's 40 to 45 minutes total per week of interval training is best for any of us. That means you can do one long session. I'm not a fan of that. I think you're probably, if you're really doing high intensity, you're going to lose your form and risk injury. So I'm a much bigger fan of twice a week, do 20 to 25 minutes plus a warm up and a cool down on the end. But your whole workout then is still 30, 35 minutes done. And you can maintain form, but if you're a beginner or you're super busy, 3 times a week doing maybe 15 minutes at most of interval training, warm up and cool down, and you're talking that whole workout takes 20 to 25 minutes. And that can be very, very effective. So that's really what you're talking about. Get breathless, be totally done, earn that recovery interval. And then sequence your exercise correctly. So take these 5 steps, put them in order, do them right, and last but not least, get the right intensity. So if we go back to weight training, that's reaching fatigue. And if we go to cardio intervals, at the end of the 30-second intervals, you should be bent over, hands on your knees. I've earned this break. You're not just saying, okay, there's 30 seconds. I'm going to walk around now and go a little lighter. That is not an interval, ladies. Don't make me come over there. So you really got to get a little more intense and be aware that if you go intense, then you need more recovery between either the intervals or your workouts during the same week. Super important that you're considering that. Okay, so here's the tease. What I've teased for you, because I want you to walk away from this thinking there is hope that yes, every woman practically on the planet has cellulite somewhere on her body. I have cellulite on me. I've done and I am in training. As many of you know, 2019 I've declared as my fittest year ever. No pressure, right? But I'm doing an Ironman at the end of the year in Cozumel, working really hard between now and then to keep my hormones balanced and yet prove that naturally you can keep those hormones in balance. And I'm not opposed to doing bioidentical replacement, by the way. If, say, I find midsummer, I've been training consistently for 4 or 5 months and I'm not able to do it on my own, there's nothing wrong. There's no weakness in doing that. Some of us need a boost here and there. And you know what I found 2 years ago or a year and a half ago is I didn't need it. Pre-training, I went on hormones. I went off of hormones, trained again, same exact status, felt great. So I don't see the need of taking them if I don't need them. And yet I'm not opposed to taking them. So I have no judgment whether you are or you aren't. And my goal for you, if you're listening, is just that you feel great. And you're doing whatever you need to do and what you feel comfortable doing, feeling great long term. So it's a 2-for-1. I want you to feel great today, but I also want you to be healthy in 10 and 20 and 30 and 40 years. So I will see you at 100, okay? But I also want to be sure that you're very aware that because every woman has cellulite, no matter what, you're not completely going to get rid of it. And you want to embrace the fact that you're doing everything you can about your health. That's the important part. And then live with confidence in that body that, you know, hey, yeah, I wish that this upper arm cellulite wasn't there. And it comes and goes because even if you're in perimenopause, menopause, we still often will cycle through, you know, changes in our body that are, you know, still that phantom, you know, monthly cycle is somewhat there. And in times of stress, things are going to change for you as well. But you've got to know that, you know, you're doing everything you can. And if it's 90 degrees out and 90% humidity, take the blazer off, right? And show those sleeveless arms. Who cares, right? And I know that is easy to say and sometimes hard to live with. But, you know, you can wear your badge of honor with pride, knowing you're doing everything you can within reason. And it's going to show up everywhere else in your body, the way you carry yourself, your eyes, your smile, your skin, even if the cellulite is still there. So I have an offer for you if you'd like consistent improvements versus random improvising. You know, check out the brand new Stronger to Smooth and Strong course. So many of you also are familiar with our Stronger 1 12-week program. And we are now in the 4th launch of that program. Stronger 2 is for those people who maybe have done Stronger 1 and they're ready for something new, shake things up a little bit, and or somebody who may not have done Stronger 1 but has cellulite, really wants to target that. You're invited to be a part of this 12-week case study as we launch in beta, meaning for the first time, we still have some finishing things we know that probably will make it better, and yet we don't know what they are. I really need you to be in it, doing it, telling me, you know, this would be more helpful if I had something else here. And we're looking for people who are willing to share their before and after results. We won't tie them to your name specifically or your identity, but we do want to know your pre-measurements, your post-measurements, your participation. We want to see all those things. And we, of course, are vested in your success because we want the program to be a success and we want to continue to build it out as we need to. So it is ready to go. Don't let me give you the wrong impression. We are putting the final touches on it, and it has all of the pieces in it. It has the programming in it, and we will be in it as coaches. I will be your leader in that group program, private Facebook group to support you. And then I've got staff who are also waiting, both from the technical side of things. You'll have access to all of the videos for 12 weeks. You're not actually buying the videos that you'll download. They're not downloadable behind the scenes. And here's why we've done that. It's a mindset thing. Because you and I, if we know we have lifetime access, we're buying these videos, we know we can do it at any time. And after 35 years, this is my 35th year as a fitness professional, we know we don't. If you have lifetime access, there's no pressure, there's no urgency, there's no reason to do it. So we've done this and we've gotten far better results from a program that has a literal start and an end than to one that you have access to for a year. I've done both, and I want you to succeed. So you get in, you're part of this 12-week case study program. You're sharing your results and getting some special treatment as well with a phenomenal group of women who are in the same boat, who want to target the same thing. If you want more information, you can go to flipping50.com/get even stronger. And that's just get even stronger, no spaces between it. This link will actually be in the show notes at flipping50.com/dimples. Get it? So if you have a question or you're interested in that link to learn more about the Cellulite specific program, you can visit flipping50.com/dimples and join us as well on the Flipping 50 TV Facebook page. That's our public page, but you, if you're a part of the program, will be in a private group where all comments are private only to the group as long as you're posting them there. And to get all the juicy resources and the links mentioned in today's show notes, again, that's flipping50.com/dimples. If you enjoyed the show, I would so appreciate leaving a rating in iTunes, and then share this with a friend to surround yourself with a supportive community of women on the same journey. What are you waiting for? Start Flipping 50 today.